Hello, I'm Angie Freeman. I'm the Expanded Food Nutrition Assistant at Taylor County Cooperative Extension Office. Right now we're thinking of all different kinds of ways to reach you all with food and tips and recipes, and we're having to do so much of it remotely that I wanted to connect you with a website that will really help you out. It's called planeatmove.com. And there are not only recipes, but there are activities, there are tips for getting your kids moving, there are tips for having kids help cook in the kitchen, and all of our old calendar recipes are on that site. So if something happened and you threw away one of our recipe calendars years ago and you wish you had that old recipe, it'll be on Plan Eat Move. So one of the recipes we're going to do today is called breakfast pizza. This was from 2018, I believe, and it's a really good, quick breakfast recipe, and it's kind of like, kids got breakfast pizza at school and they really liked it, so maybe since they're not in school now, then you can try this pizza at home. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to chop some vegetables, and these can be your favorite vegetables. You want a couple of cups of your favorite vegetables, so if your family likes mushrooms or onions or even black olives, their favorite pizza vegetables can go on this. So I'm going to show you a few handy chopping tips that you can do. With an onion, we hate to chop onions, don't we? Because they make us cry, and we don't need to cry right now, we need to laugh. So I took the blossom end, the fuzzy end off the onion, and made it flat so it won't roll around on me. That's my oven has preheated. And then I'm going to cut this in half right down the middle before I peel it. Now I'm going to peel it. I'm going to set this other half aside because I'm only using half of it today. Now I'll peel my onion. Since I've got it halved. The more you handle an onion, the smellier it gets. So we want to handle it as little as possible. Now your trick here for slicing your onion, if you want to do julienne strips, I'm going to make a cut, but I'm not going to go all the way through the root. You see my root end is still intact. So I'm going to make a little cut, and then I'm going to cut again, all the way around both sides, all the way down to the cutting board. And if you feel more comfortable using a paring knife, you can use that, whatever's handiest or what you're used to. And I'm going to do the other side, just cutting the strips all the way down. Now, if I wanted long strips of onion, say for fajita or something like that, all I have to do is cut this root end off, and it's all ready. But I want this diced. So I'm going to take my knife and run it through these strips. And we'll have nice diced onions all ready for us. And I'm not crying. So, diced onions all ready. If you want them minced, you want to chop them even more. So you take your knife, keep your point down, and just rock back and forth, up and down, to make smaller pieces if you want them. Slide these over here to the side. I'm also going to chop a green bell pepper. You can use the colored ones if you want to. These are always less expensive than the ripe ones, but the ripe ones are a little bit sweeter until they're in season, and then they're all cheap. So to keep from shedding all your seeds everywhere, I cut the top off, and I'm going to use the knife to slice the membrane. Put my hand in there, give it a little twist, and I got all the seeds out. Very quick and easy. So now, set it on the flat side, and then I'm going to cut strips. This is something that you can involve your kids in. Now, younger children, you don't want to handle big knives, but by the time they're in 3rd or 4th grade, they can probably handle a regular knife. But if you want to look for some children's knives, you can usually find these online. I know there's one site called Curious Chef where we've ordered some of these utensils. So it has a serrated edge on it, but it won't cut fingers. And that's a good, useful tool for your children to start out. And get them started early in the kitchen when they want to do something, because preschoolers and younger children are always going, let me help, I want to do. You wait till they're teenagers and you're just out of luck because they're not going to want to do anything. So then I'm going to line these strips up, and I'm just going to slice them into diced pieces My pieces are never perfectly straight, like the Food Network people, but hey, they're gonna taste good anyway. So don't worry about that, especially if your kids are doing it. Don't worry if they're not perfect. If you fuss at them, tell them that's not right, well, don't want to get them discouraged. Encourage them to do in the kitchen as much as they will, and praise them, and no, those slices won't be pretty. You know, a 2-year-old can slice a banana for the fruit salad with a butter knife. So pick those things that are, well, they can do tomatoes, not tomatoes, but strawberries or something, anything soft. So get them started early in the kitchen. They can help set the table. They can clean up after supper. Maybe if you've got extra art time in the afternoon, they can make placemats for supper time to kind of cheer up the table, make it bright and cheery, especially this time of year. Maybe we want some pictures of flowers and things like that. So there's our bell pepper. And I've got a couple of tomatoes that I'm going to do. I like to just core them. This on my trash bowl. Get it out of the way. Cut it in half, and again, face down, and just give it a little slice. Then you can dice it. Sometimes tomatoes are a little tricky. Now, you know, most of the time we use canned tomato products on regular pizza. This is good to have fresh tomatoes on because we kind of associate fresh tomatoes with breakfast. But if all you happen to have is a can of diced tomatoes, go ahead and use it, and you'll still get the flavor and the color. Let's slice it this way. And add a little bit of that. You want that vitamin C and vitamin A that's so rich in our, vitamin A especially, in our red fruits and vegetables. I got a second one here, but I don't think I need it. I think that'll be all the vegetables that we need. I'm going to set them off to the side. Got my oven preheating right now to 375 degrees. And the crust that I'm using is, it's just crescent rolls, and I buy the reduced fat because that helps to cut back a little bit on the fat because we are using some meat in this. So usually, depending on the size pan that you're using, and you don't have to use a round pizza pan, you can use a regular cookie sheet. It usually takes 2 packages, and that's what the recipe calls for, is 2 packages of crescent rolls. And always jump when they pop. Just gonna pull those out, and I've already unpacked 1 can. I'm just gonna roll them out, and I'm gonna spread them thin. And this crescent roll dough is excellent for any kind of pizza you want to use. This is something that keeps well in the refrigerator. You could use regular biscuits if you wanted to as well. And you want to just push it into the pan, push it up on the sides, and make sure you pinch together those perforations that would separate it into rolls. You could use this for a regular kind of pizza, dessert pizza. It's really good to make the fruit pizzas on. Pat this in here and put it together, because when it bakes, it's all going to bake together as one big sheet. This is another good thing that the kids could do, because the kids like to have their hands in dough, so let them make the dough. You've got your kids who are so meticulous and want to do it exactly right. That's the way my daughter always was. It's got to be just right, so she'd get it. She'd probably watch this, and then she'll fuss at me. All right, now, I've already pre-browned breakfast sausage. This is about 1/2 pound, and I'm going to sprinkle this on to the dough. Kind of spread it out. You can substitute another type of meat if you prefer bacon, if you want to chop up some ham, whatever you happen to have handy in the refrigerator and what your family likes. That's the important thing, because with recipes, don't get too hung up in thinking that this, I've got to use this and I don't have this, think about what you've already got and substitute, because right now we're not making quick trips to the grocery store. We're trying to keep that list. So write what you need on the list, keep you a list on the refrigerator, and you can get it next time, but while you use something that you've got in the refrigerator, something you already have on hand. Now I'm going to sprinkle my vegetables over here, and what I love about this recipe is it makes such a nice, bright, colorful dish. And you don't have to just have it for breakfast in the morning. Lots of people like to have breakfast for dinner, right? So do it for dinner. You can add some fresh fruit to go along with that. Don't forget to get your milk in for the day. The kids are out of school, so they're not getting maybe not getting as much milk as they did. So try to get that milk in for them. Got my vegetables all spread out over top of it. Now, our topping, when I made this at the high school, the kids are going, where's the tomato sauce? And then somebody else would go, there's no tomato sauce, we're using eggs. And the eggs are the tomato sauce in the pizza. So that's what kind of binds it all together. So we're just gonna drizzle this over the top. Now most of my recipes don't add a lot of salt. This doesn't add any, because there's going to be some salt in the sausage. Whatever meat you add, there's going to be some extra sodium in that. But if you have someone who thinks they just have to have salt, they can add a little bit on at the end as they're dishing their own serving. And now I'm going to add about 1/2 cup of cheese. Now, when you're thinking about measurements, you've got to remember there's a difference in cups. And if you don't have dry measuring cups, you could use a liquid measuring cup for dry ingredients as long as you're not baking. Because when you're baking, your ingredients have to be exact, because that's a chemical science. But it's not a good idea to use dry cups for liquid measurements, because you can't get a good feel of where that is, and then you don't have a pour spout either. So when you're doing dry ingredients, you need to use your dry cups. And this is just going to sprinkle a little cheese on top. And I'm sorry, but I love cheese, so I'm going to put extra cheese on. And your family does too, I know. And cheese is a dairy. If you've got kids who are not great milk drinkers, pump up the cheese and the yogurt on them, and you'll still get that daily calcium in. So I'm going to use closer to a cup. That's what I like to do. All right, we've got our oven preheated, and I'm going to pop this in the oven, and we'll be back in a minute to show you the finished product. Okay, so now we're back with our finished pizza. The recipe instructions tell you to bake it at 375 for 20 minutes, but our ovens here are really hot, and it got done in less than 20 minutes. So I'm going to recommend that you keep an eye on this, a really close eye, and you want to make sure that your crust edges are browned and the middle is not gooey or wiggly. So you want to be able to cut it without it running all over the place, of course. But if you leave it in, if your ovens run hot, you might kick it down to 350 next time, or you might just keep an eye on it, turn the oven light on and watch it, and when your crust starts to get done, then generally that's a good sign that it's ready. I'm going to show you that I'm going to freeze my leftover sausage, because a roll is a pound and it only calls for 1/2 pound. So we don't want that to go to waste, but it's already browned. That's the messy part of the cooking meat. So it's going into the freezer, and I wrote on it that it was sausage and what the date was, and put it into a freezer safe bag, and then it's going to go in the freezer. And I can use that sometime in the next month or two, and it should be really good, ready for another kind of pizza or some other dish that I might be doing a frittata or an omelet that I want a little bit of meat in. And the other half of the onions going into another recipe, so it's just going to go into the refrigerator in a bag. Don't waste your excess food. Be sure and store it properly. Put it into a good airtight container, and store your veggies in the cool part of the refrigerator. And you can always use those leftovers for something else. Remember to check out our website, planeatmove.com. /recipes takes you straight to the recipes, You can find all of our old calendar recipes there, including this one for breakfast pizza. If you haven't liked and are following our Facebook page for Taylor County Cooperative Extension Service, please do that. We'd like for you to keep up with all the information that we post, other recipes that we may be doing, and sometimes we just post printed recipes. It might be something, a snack or a breakfast or something you'd like to try at home. So thanks for joining us today.